What's up, my family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Slap.
What the hell was that?
Oh, yeah!
What the f*** are you talking about?
Aloha, everybody, and welcome to another exciting adventure of the Birds Report podcast here on A2D Radio. Well, the Eagles are 2-0, and as you would expect, everybody in the city of brotherly love is really, really depressed about it. There are concerns about a defense that has given up an NFL-high 7 touchdown passes and has just 4 sacks in the first 2 games. There are concerns about the quarterback, who's already been sacked 7 times and has completed just 3 passes of 20 yards or more in the first 2 games. There are concerns about last week's little sideline tete-a-tete between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. And everything is likely to worsen this week when the Eagles beat Tampa Bay and improved to 3-0. Into this discontent, the sea of discontent and teeth gnashing, I bring this week's very special guest, a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time All-Pro, and for the last 27 years, the man who has been responsible for making Merrill Reese the icon he is, Eagles radio analyst Mike Quick. Mike, welcome to the Birds Report.
Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Domo.
Mike, before we get to serious stuff about the first 2 games and this week's, I got to tell you, last week I watched Kelsey, the docuseries about Jason.
Yeah.
And it's outstanding. But I got to tell you, I was blown away by your poker table performance.
Man, it was.
I mean,
hey, Domo, it was a setup. They got me up there under the pretense of having a discussion about Jason possibly moving on from football and, you know, his next move. And in the process, we're going to play some poker. They end up taking all my money. And not just like going inside my head and taking ideas, but they took all my money on the poker table.
Well, I got to tell you, your line, which, quote, I don't think even when you think you know, you really know until you get out. I mean,
That's
people
right.
are going to remember that 20 years from now the way they remember, here's looking at you, kid.
Well, no, it kind of came off the because that's what I was thinking. Even when
Exactly.
when I was going through it, like the latter part of my career, and I knew that it was coming to an end.
Yeah.
It really never set in until after I was out of the game, and I'm thinking, you know what, it was time, and my body told me that it was time, and I think for Jason, he's getting to that stage as well where he realizes that he's having to put himself through so much just to be prepared physically and mentally each and every week. It's a real grind on you mentally and physically to last as long as he's lasted in the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he did an outstanding job in the documentary of explaining, you know, what he's going through right now and the battle between, you know, wanting to play forever, which every athlete wants to, and the fact that, you know, he wants to be able to get down on the ground and play with his kids. He wants to, you know, he wants to still recognize everybody in 20 years, you know, things like that are, you know, are something every football player has to think about.
And I think that's most important, that the fact that, and his wife was really good in it as well, because, you know, you really get a sense of the whole dynamic, the whole family dynamics with the kids and Jason and the wife. And I say this, families of guys who play in the league really need to understand better what they go through. And I think this really shines a light on a lot of the things that people don't really understand about guys who play in the league and all the things that they have to deal with. And for Jason and his family that didn't know, I think now they know a whole lot more about what he's dealing with.
Yeah. No, people that haven't seen it need to. Anybody that watches football it's really something they should see.
I agree.
Yeah, Michael, let's talk about the Eagles. As I mentioned earlier, they're 2-0 and everybody's unhappy about it. I was curious what your take is on the first two games right now.
So I understand, like, given what everyone really expected this team to just pass go, get right to the Super Bowl and be in the Super Bowl once again. But it just doesn't work that way. You've got 17 weeks to prove yourself as one of the top teams in the league and get into the postseason, which is what you really want to do. The regular season is really setting yourself up for the postseason to get an opportunity to play for a Lombardi Trophy. But with all of the expectations coming into this season after having such a magnificent season last year, everyone's just expecting this team to blow teams away. It just doesn't work like that. And when you have the success that they had last year, then you're the team that everybody's hunting. You're no longer the hunter, you're the hunted. And everybody's after you. Everybody wants to prove themselves on you. And so if teams are able to test their mettle against the team that was in the Super Bowl, they feel good about their play against the Philadelphia Eagles and so this team has to know that every week they're going to get the best shot of whatever team that they're playing against. As fans, you want to see them just beat teams up, blow teams out, but it just doesn't work that way. And you know that. Yeah.
I knew that, because that offense was so explosive last year, you knew that every coach, every defensive coordinator that knew they were going to face this team this year was going to spend a lot of extra time during the offseason trying to come up with a way to counter some of the things that they did so well last year. Yep. And, to start with Belichick, who's probably one of the best defensive coaches in history, and Brian Flores, who's, studied under Bill as the first two teams to go against them. I thought you saw Bill use, and Brian, they both umbrella coverage, so they couldn't throw deep on them. A lot of zones, so that their backs weren't to Jalen, and he could run when he had the chance. They just didn't allow him much room to run. It just seemed to be the perfect storm. Two coaches that were going to confuse them a little bit in those first two games.
Well, and I think, even you're exactly right in that they're showing you looks that were probably you haven't seen before because they spent so much time. That's the first part. They spent so much time in the season, these teams, trying to make sure that the Eagles are not as productive offensively as they were last year. So for the Eagles offensively, they will have to show a lot of patience because teams are going to have that umbrella, like you said, over the back of that defense to try and make sure that they don't give up big plays down the field and try and force the Eagles into 12, 13, 14 play drives, hoping that they make a mistake somewhere along the way. They want to try and slowly make them march down the field if they're going to score against them and hopefully force the Eagles to make a mistake. And that's one of the reasons why they show you so many looks before the ball is snapped, but then they go to something completely different. And you have to be able to read that on the fly, on the move. And so it has caused some issues for this offense. But I just think early in the season, that's what you're going to get. And if you can squeak out these wins here and there, they're going to matter in the end. When the offense really starts to work well and the timing of the passing game and everything is working well, we'll see a different football team.
They're going to be playing another pretty good defense this week in the books. Having 11 days here to self-scout, to maybe look at these first two games and see what they need to tweak and adjust. Is that a positive this early in the season for them to be having this time to do that?
It absolutely is, because, with the thing about this, the RPO game, it was so good for the Eagles last season. But now teams as you said, they've spent time in the offseason figuring out how to slow that down, how to come up with some kind of way that Jalen Hurts is not going to have these big running lanes, these huge run lanes, and trying to figure out how that player that they were always able to have in conflict, if that player played the run, they were going to throw a pass behind him. If that player played the pass, they were going to run the ball in front of him. That sort of thing. Defensive now are starting to take that away. And so now what's the next move for the Eagles? It's your move now. And what's the move? And having these 11 days, I think, really gives them an opportunity to look at what teams are trying to do in these first 2 weeks and understand that and try and come back with a counter move.
Yeah. One thing, I mean, if I'm looking for something that they're going to do this week, it's go to Dallas Goedert early in a different kind of way. I mean, he had 6 catches against Minnesota, but for 22 yards. I think he had 8 yards after the catch. I mean, they were right there with him. They ran, I think, 1 screen with him. And I mean, last year he was one of the best screen guys in the league, but they were blitzing a lot. So that kind of put a damper on that. But I mean, do you think that we're going to see them use Dallas a little bit differently going forward here?
I think they have to. I think he's too big of a weapon. And there's so many ways to utilize Dallas Goedert. They have to, because it just makes sense. You got to use your best targets, and he's certainly one of the best. I agree. In the screen game, I don't know if there's anyone better than Goddard last year. And now you think about Tampa Bay. It's Todd Bowles. It's a fast defense. Those 2 linebackers, Levante David, Devin White, they can run. And they're going to blitz the Eagles. And so when you get these guys blitzing, Shaq Barrett, got to mention him. When you get these guys going to really come after your quarterback, they're going to blitz a whole lot. You got to use the screen game, because that's one of the best, the screen draw, best weapons against that fast-flowing defense. And some counter stuff. Fake the screen one way and throw it back to Goddard the other way. That's the type of attack that I'm hoping to see against Todd Bowles' defense.
Yeah. Mike, having covered you your entire career, I recall just the countless number of I was open tirades you had on the sideline with Jaworski and Randall. 0-0. I was curious what your reaction was to AJ and the sideline thing. Is it a lot to do about nothing? Is it something we need to watch? If you're Nick, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's actually kind of healthy. Things aren't supposed to go smoothly, and if AJ's not getting the ball and he thinks he should be getting the ball, and he probably should be, then there's nothing wrong with voicing it. So I don't want to see him being disruptive on the sideline, but I think when you're a competitor and when you're as good as A.J. Brown is, when you're as good as Devontae Smith, when you're as good as Dallas Goedert, and the ball's not coming your way, and you see that the offense is really not moving to the level that you want it to move, hope that it moves, then you want to put your 2 cents in. Now, you don't want to go overboard, and I don't think he went overboard. It's just now that you have cameras everywhere. If a guy scratches in the wrong place, there's going to be a camera there like, oh, look at him, he's scratching, and he shouldn't be scratching. No, that's just the era that we're living in right now. It's just there are cameras everywhere. They're going to see everything that players do, and when something like that happens, it's gonna, and everybody gets a chance to see it. Oh, he's all upset. Well, the offense is kind of stale, so he should be upset.
We were talking about the offense, and overall, I wanted to get your take right now on Jalen. I mean, he's 7th in completion percentage. I mean, that's a positive. But he's only thrown 2 touchdowns. He's been sacked a lot. He looks, to me, he looks impatient in the pocket. He looks like a guy that's not, I don't know why he wouldn't trust his protection, but he seems to be in a hurry to get out of there, and that's been counterproductive. I mean, what's been your take on him in these first two games?
It looks like preseason football. So it looks like when we got into preseason, back in the day, back when I was a player, that kind of thing. So the preseason games, they did matter because it helped you to get your timing right. It helped you to get up to the speed of the game. I understand the joint practices and the value in the joint practices, but they don't mimic game. They don't give you the same energy, the same sense that a game gives you, the same speed of a game. So now you get into game one and you haven't played any real games yet. You're going to be off a little bit. You get into game two and still. So I really believe that the offense will come around, but I just believe that you look at a lot of football around the league and a lot of it looks still like preseason mode. I remember back in the day, Bill Belichick used to really consider the first 4 weeks, and it was like the first quarter because there were 16 games. The first quarter of the season, that still preseason, if I can go 2-2, then I'm in pretty good shape. But at the same time, I'm rounding out my offense. I'm understanding who we are because each year you're going to be different, and you have to understand who you are. Like this year, not what you did last year. You have to understand who you are this year and the way teams are playing you this year.
Yeah, Mike, we got to take a quick 30-second commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
We're back with Mike Quick. Mike, right after the first game, I was surprised that Nick quickly addressed whether he needs to reevaluate their whole approach to preseason, that maybe he needs to play those guys a little bit more. And it didn't, he wasn't prompted. I mean, it wasn't like somebody asked him about that. I mean, so clearly it's something he's probably going to change next year. I don't know to what degree. I don't think we're going to see those guys play every game, but clearly a few more series than zero, which is what they played this year.
Will he though? Will he change it? So I know that was the feeling, and right after that game, when they didn't play well, the execution wasn't there. He really hadn't had an opportunity to assess the film, think about it's Belichick and all these things that Belichick's doing. I think it was just the reaction because of the way he was feeling in the moment. And I thought about it the next day, is he really going to change the way he handles preseason? And, when you get back to next year, next summer, I don't know if he's going to change the way he handled this, especially if they go on to continue to win and end up. It's this. It's such a long season, and it's so hard to win each and every week. And even when it's an ugly win, if you're able to put a win in the win column, then you move on and you try and get ready for the next week. I'm not so sure that he's going to change the approach. And I am not so sure that I would like to see it. I don't think guys should play a whole lot in the preseason. I really don't think that you should. Make sure that you get the conditioning that you need. You understand all the plays and all the detailed work that you need to do within the play. But until it matters, I don't really, I don't think guys should play that much in the preseason.
I'm trying to remember going back to the 80s when you played.
I played
with Marion and Buddy. How much did you play?
Very little.
Yeah, because you were holding out every week, every training camp.
So listen, what they're doing now, not playing in the preseason, I knew that 30 years ago. So I was already doing that when, rather than go to training camp and get all beat up, I just chose to hold out, and I would come in the week before the regular season started, and I'd get a few days practice in, and I felt like I was ready.
Yeah. That's a North Carolina State education right there.
I was just ahead of the curve. That's all.
Let's move on to the defense, Mike. The defense kind of has more excuses than the offense for the performance in the first two games because of all the injuries they've got. You start with Nakobe Dean, who's on IR. James Bradberry didn't play last week because of a concussion. Avonte Maddox probably out for the season. Blankenship. You can go down the list. But they've struggled. They've given up a NFL high 7 touchdown passes. They're not. They haven't been very good in the red zone. The Vikings scored on all 4 trips into the red zone last week.
Right.
Are you concerned? Are you concerned about this defense going forward, or do you think once people get healthy that things will work out?
So I think the concern is you worry about the depth because you see Nakobe Dean go down, and right away you have quality depth at the position. So they've been able to bring in these 1-year guys, and really they've done well with them for the most part. Dear White played great last year. TJ Edwards was phenomenal last year. Marcus Epps, and so you're missing all of these guys who are really important in the success that that defense had last year, and so you have to replace those guys. And I do believe that they have some young talent that eventually I think you're going to be able to count on. They're going to be really good at some point, but they need time on task. They need the experience that you have to be really good and play fast in this league, especially on the back end of this defense. James Bradberry, hopefully he's back. But Josh Jobe, I think, is going to end up a really good player. I like Josh Jobe, the cornerback out of Alabama, undrafted, but really, really talented. Right. A couple of young linebackers look pretty good. But the key to this defense is going to be that massive defensive line that is so good that, to me, I don't know if there's anyone on the planet that can block this defensive front when they decide that they want to get after it.
Yeah. Jalen Carter is, I think in the first 2 games, he's got already got 10, 11 pressures. There are only 3 guys in the league that have more, according to Pro Football Focus. I mean, Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson, and somebody else. He's just been he's not coming quietly into this league. He's making an impact right out of the gate.
Oh, so in the common thread, the guys that have more, they're edge rushers. They're coming off the edge. This guy is beating 330 and 40 pounders right in the middle of the offense. He is so disruptive. He's so talented. He's just fun to watch. And I do believe that when he plays the way he's playing, it forces a guy like Fletcher Cox to raise the level. Fletcher's 32, been in the league a long time. You can't relax because this guy, and then Jordan Davis, God, he's been so good in these first 2 games. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. So this front, the guys that they have up front defensively, I think they can make up for a lot of play on the back end that's not as up to snuff.
Yeah. Jordan Davis last week, early on in the game, made a move on the guy that was trying to block him. Too many people think Jordan Davis is just this big run stuffer, and he's so much more. And I think as he develops, people are going to see that. Just how he and Carter could end up being the Jerome Brown and Reggie White of this era inside there.
I believe that. I just think that they're so talented. And, I saw Jordan Davis on one play. He takes the center. He drills the center. He knocks him back into the quarterback on his way to make the – I'm like, oh, my goodness. Yes, I haven't seen stuff like that since Reggie Jerome.
Yeah. It's funny. When he came out, I was talking to a guy from Nike that was like an exercise physiologist. And, he had all the numbers on Jordan Davis. And he said he really wanted to see this guy line up as a wide 9 because of the fact that he had like an incredible 10-yard split. I mean, he was faster than most edge rushers. And then you add his power. You got an offensive tackle sitting 5 yards away from him that by the time he gets to him, I mean, he just turns into roadkill. But I don't think they're going to try that anytime soon. I think they'll keep him. I mean, they move. Sean moves people around, but I don't think we'll see. I don't think we'll see Jordan Davis lined up as a wide 9 anytime soon.
I don't think so either. And I think a lot of the credit goes to the strength and conditioning folk at the Eagles because Jordan Davis is in phenomenal shape right now, and I think if they are able to maintain keeping him around at 330 pounds. Wow. 330 pounds, like that's small.
Yeah.
They're able to keep him around that area, 325, 330. And in the shape that he's in, he's going to be a problem for every team that they face. Yeah.
Mike, they re-signed Fletcher. They re-signed Brandon. Two guys on the downside of their careers. But, I mean, they can still contribute. But how much has their leadership meant, their locker room leadership mean to this team, not only now, but going forward, as far as what they can bring to this team this year?
Yeah, they show the younger guys how they should do it, how they should prepare, how they should watch film, the things that they should study. That it's really so important that Jordan Davis understands how to use his hands, how to study film, how to study the opponent and look at little details in the opponent and understand weaknesses and how I can take advantage of things. To me, that there's a lot of value in having a Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox around, even when the numbers don't show it. They are able to impart so much wisdom on these younger players that are going to really help them for their entire careers.
Mm-hmm. We're going to see, I imagine, judging from these first two games, quarterbacks who are just going to be obsessed with getting that ball out so that rush can't cause too much damage. We saw it with Mac Jones. I mean, I think he had the 4th or 5th fastest snap to release average in the league in week 1. And Cousins never gets rid of it quickly, but he got rid of it quicker than he usually does. We're going to see that going forward with most of these QBs, just trying to get that ball out before Carter and Sweat and those people can do the damage.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a common theme throughout the league, throughout this season, because of the quickness and how quickly these guys can break down the pocket and get to quarterbacks. I think they're all going to be looking for the quick throw. So then, to me, Damo, when I think about that, I think about, okay, how can the Eagles then take advantage of that? So I think you have to start to play tight coverage and try and take away the first read of the quarterback to make sure the quarterback has to come off of that read. Or he's got to pump fake. He's got to hold it just a little bit longer and allow that pass rush to get to the quarterback.
Yeah. Which kind of leads to my next question. James, you had mentioned Bradberry earlier. Probably will be back this week. Where do you put him? I mean, with Avante out, they're missing a valuable piece inside. I mean, I don't think people realize how important – I mean, you do, obviously, but the average fan doesn't realize how important that nickel is in today's game. So, and Bradberry played there some in camp and preseason. Where would you put him, or would it be a situational deal every week as far as whether you put Bradberry on the outside or inside? You had mentioned Job you think is going to be a good player. If Job can hold up on the outside, do you move Bradberry inside? What would you do?
So I think the inside, you really want a guy who has cat quickness, and that was Avante's secret sauce, that he could change direction so quickly. Bradberry's not that guy. But with Tampa Bay, and if Tampa Bay is going to put Mike Evans in the slot, which we've seen them do a lot, Mike Evans is 6'5". He's 230 pounds. I think that's a good matchup for Bradberry. But when you have these little quick guys, and that's typically what you get in the slot, these little guys who are also guys who can return kicks, and they're 5'10" or 5'9", and they're very shifty. When that guy's in the slot, I don't think Bradberry is your best matchup to have in the slot. So that's one that they really have to work on and figure out what's the best, the best personnel group for that.
I got a feeling I got no insight into this, but the trade deadline isn't until late October. And if there's one piece you might think you need going forward, they might go out and trade for a slot if they don't feel that guy's on this roster right now. And after watching Goodrich last week, I'm not sure he's the answer. So I don't know who is.
Well, we know this. Howie Roseman doesn't sleep very much, and he is going to turn over every leaf. And I wasn't surprised to see a new punter come in, that they released the punter, bought in a new punter, because, they're going to look around, and they're going to, there are guys that came in yesterday for workouts. They're bringing in guys constantly to see if they can find the depth that they need at certain positions.
Yeah. Mike, another quick commercial, and then we'll be back for the final 15 with you.
All right.
We'll be right back in 30 minutes.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
And we're back with Mike Quick. Mike, I got to ask you about Sidney Brown. I think he only played 4 snaps defensively against the Vikings, didn't play any week 1. I love the kid. Watch him on special teams, just the way he hits. He's and I realize he's going to make mistakes, but is he just not ready to be put out there yet on a regular basis? Is that what you think is going through their minds right now?
I think in time we will see him, but I just think that it's not quite his time yet. He's actually bigger than I thought he was, when he first came to camp. And then I stood up beside him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, wow, this guy's he is the right size. He does look the part. And I just think it's a matter of him playing a little bit more, and them getting, Sean decided, D coordinator, getting a little more comfortable with him, with the calls, and and making sure that he understands that he's the last line of defense. Now, he is a guy that, is tenacious. He loves to hit, and he runs fast. He's 100 miles an hour all the time. But when you're on the back end of that defense, that doesn't always serve you well. You have to be the guy who's calm enough to understand that nothing can get behind me. And if I take the wrong angle, or if I'm going too fast and I miss my guy, there's no one else behind me. And all that guy's got to do is run and hit his head on the goalpost. I think when they get comfortable with the fact that he understands that he's got to be the guy back there, it's okay when he's down in the box, but when he's got to be the guy that's on the point, the back guy, the center fielder, he's got to understand that I've got to make sure that the ball stays in front of me.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier they've given up 7 touchdown passes, which are the most in the league in those first 2 games. 3 of them have been to tight ends. Last year they gave up 3 touchdown passes to tight ends the entire season. Are the breakdowns because of Nakobe not out there, because of Blankenship not being out there? Is that what's happening as far as their problems with tight ends early on here?
Well, I just believe that teams are attacking that area where they know that the Eagles have youth, where they don't have experience, and that's the middle of the field, and that's what's going to happen until the Eagles prove that they can stop it. Tight ends are going to get ball. The first 2 weeks we saw it. We're going to see it in Tampa. And until they prove that, they can shut tight ends down, why wouldn't teams? And I think that's you have to look at where your possible matchups are, and that's what teams are doing. They don't really want to throw the ball at Slay, and even Bradberry matter. They these guys are proven veterans, and they can turn the play around quickly and take the ball away from you. But when you scout this team, when you look at the possible matchups that favor you, teams are looking at the inside, the second level and inside, and that's where the tight end roams, and the tight end lives there, and the tight ends had success in the first 2 games.
Yeah, Mike, when they moved up and drafted Jalen Carter at 9 in the first round in April, what was your reaction? I mean, did you have any concerns at that point about the move, or did you think even then that they had the people to manage Jalen and teach him how to be a pro and work around his off the field problems?
Well, here's the thing. This is not, off the field problems. These are kids, and they're going to make mistakes. And I don't think any of these guys should be defined by a mistake that they make when they're 20 years old, 19 years old, even 21 for that matter.
Right.
They still have a lot of life to live, and they still need opportunities. They still need. And so for me, you look at that player, just the pure player, and I don't know if there's a better player in the draft than Jalen Carter. And so the Eagles are really good about the research that they do into the background of these players and making sure that they turn over every stone. They go back to your grade school teachers. They talk to so many people just to get a well-rounded view of who that person is. They do all of their due diligence, and they come up with this issue off the field, that issue off the field, and then you put it all together. And is the mistake that the kid make, is that going to define the rest of his life? And I don't think so. And I'm glad that he's gotten the opportunity. I'm glad he's in Philadelphia, because I think he has the support there that he'll need to grow up and be a productive young man.
Now they've put him when they assigned him his locker, it was right next to Cox. How important has that been? You have better insight into their relationship than I do. How much of an influence is Fletcher having on him, and as far as teaching him how to be a pro?
This is what Fletcher says to me. He says, "I got my young guys," meaning like my young guys. I got them. They understand like how we do things around here, and they're going to do things the way they should be done. He says, "I got my young guys." I was asking him one day about the defensive backs and kind of how they're tutored, and that's what he said to me. He said, my young guys going to be. I got my young guys. They're going to be all right. So I was really happy to hear that.
I got to be honest with you. When I think of Fletch 6-7 years ago, I wouldn't have pegged him to be a guy that, okay, I'm coming back, 1-year contract, and I'm going to help mentor this guy. Obviously people change, and Fletcher certainly has become a valuable asset to him in that regard.
Yeah, he's grown up quite a bit. He's grown up a lot. He is a grown man, and he understands that these young guys are in the position where he was a lot of years ago. And it's really cool to see that Jalen Carter is watching Fletcher Cox. Jordan Davis, he's watching Fletcher Cox. And Fletcher Cox is showing how to do it. Yeah.
And it looks like Fletcher's kind of getting motivated by them. I mean, he can't turn back the clock, but he's making the most of his playing time out there. I mean, he's playing well.
He's playing great, and part of that goes to the coaches and the way they're rotating guys. They understand that Fletcher doesn't need to play 40 snaps in a game, 35 snaps, and so they're trying to make sure that they don't overutilize him. And what's really cool in the first 2 games, you see Fletcher in the fourth quarter making plays. And that's because of rotation, because they're making sure that they try and keep these guys as fresh as possible. Understanding, realizing that the games are determined in the fourth quarter. And that's where you need your guys to be able to make plays. And they've been able to do that in both these two games early on.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed in the New England game in the fourth quarter. That one drive, New England had a 3rd and 3 down in Eagle territory, and he stuffed Zeke for no gain.
That's right.
Very next play on 4th and 3, they go for it, and he puts pressure on Mac Jones and forces an incompletion to kill the drive. Not bad. I mean, he paid his salary right there with those two plays.
Yeah, and that's, the coaching. So Rocker, the defensive line coach, he played in the league. He understands his veteran guys. He understands his young guys. And I think they've just done a really good job of making sure that they manage these guys the right way. They know the talent that they have. They know that they don't want to wear out, especially their older guys. They know that there's 17 games in the regular season, and they need these guys at the latter part. When it gets to December, you really need these guys.
Yeah. History has shown it ain't easy to get back to the Super Bowl, win or lose. I mean, just one Super Bowl loser has made it back the next year. That was the Patriots after they lost to the Eagles in 2017. They went back and beat the Rams to win it. There's only been 2 teams since in the salary cap era that have won back-to-back titles. What's the toughest part about getting back there and repeating? I mean, you mentioned earlier, having a target on your back that everybody's gunning for you. That's been pretty apparent in the Eagles' first 2 games. Yep. I mean, is it that? Is it the grind? Is it not being able to just, I know players mentally would like to snap their fingers and be in the playoffs right now rather than have to go play 17 games, but that's not the way it's done. I mean, what do you think is the toughest part of this journey?
I think the toughest part is probably the people that you lose because you're successful. Now, you're going to lose people because some of them think that they're the reason for the success. They're going to want big contracts. And you're going to lose people because other teams are going to poach your roster because they realize, hey, that defensive coordinator, he's pretty good. Let's take him. Yeah. Offensive coordinator, he's pretty good. So that offensive coordinator, he's in Indy now. And so, hey, this guy's pretty good. And they come after your people. So I think the biggest part is when you have that much success, you're one play away or one game away from the Lombardi Trophy. And you have all of these teams, these 32 teams, and they look at their roster of people and you're out of contract or you can poached in some way or another. People come for your people. Then you've got to reset. You've got to reset your coaching staff at all these different coaching positions. You've got to reset your defense now because you've lost so many people on defense. You've got to reset here and there. They lost their right guard. And it's because you lose so many people and then you got to reset. That to me is the biggest thing that's not talked about.
Yeah. And, you look down the road here next year or 2, they're going to have even more of those to deal with when Jason retires, when Lane retires. I mean, those are huge building blocks on your line that are going to eventually have to be replaced. But that's why they pay Howie the big bucks.
Yeah, that's right. I just hope that while we have these guys, you mentioned Lane. Lane has been an unbelievable football player. I just hope that we appreciate what he has been. Jason Kelsey, for so many years, such an unbelievable player, and he's right here. We get to see him every day. You have to appreciate these guys because they are really – they're special people. Yeah. Lane Johnson, right tackle, he's a special dude. Jason Kelsey is a special dude. Fletcher Cox, he's been a special dude for this franchise for a long, long time. Brandon Graham, he's iconic. We have to appreciate these guys for who they are and what they've been able to do. And for the joy, the entertainment value that they've given us.
Yeah. Michael, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it, and had a lot of fun talking football with you, as I always do.
Domo, I can always talk to you, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
You take care.
All right, buddy. See you.
And we'll be right back. We're going to take a commercial break right now, and we'll be back with my top 10 and bottom 5 rankings.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
Okay, we're back for the final 15 minutes here. And like I said, it's time for the top 10, bottom 5 rankings. We'll start with the bottom 5. I'm going to move my computer over so you can see the board a little bit easier. And we've gone a little bit more high tech this week. We actually have logo magnets, so hopefully that helps you a little bit. Here we go. We'll start with the bottom 5. 28. We've got the LA Chargers, who are off to an unexpected 0-2 start. They've got Minnesota this week. Brandon Staley is supposed to be a defensive genius, and his defense has given up 63 points in their first 2 games. So when Ryan Tannehill only has 4 incompletions against you, something's wrong. So number 29, Denver, who moved down from 28 after yet another loss, this time to Washington, 35-33. Sean Payton is 0-2, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Number 30, we've got the Bears. Lost to Tampa Bay, the team the Eagles are facing this week, 27-17. Justin Fields just seems lost. He was sacked 6 times by the Bucs and threw 2 interceptions. And this week he's got to go to Arrowhead, so it's going to be a lot more misery for him. Number 31, we've got Arizona, which actually moved up from 30, even though all they did was lose to the Giants. Moved up from 32. They came back for a 20-0 first half deficit and made a game of it, and that's got to count for something. So, and number 32 this week, the dead last, we've got the Houston Texans. Lost to Indianapolis 31-20 to fall to 0-2. And they've got a road trip to Jacksonville next. So on the plus side, C.J. Stroud hasn't thrown an interception yet. On the minus side, he's been sacked an NFL worst 11 times. So that's our bottom 5. And now we get to the top 10. Number 10, we've got the Detroit Lions. Lions actually fell from 5 after a loss this week. And they've got the Falcons up next. They lost to Seattle 37-31. Jared Goff is 3rd in passer rating, but had a costly interception in the 4th quarter that was returned for a touchdown by the Seahawks cornerback Trey Brown. So they've slipped to 10. Number 9, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are 2-0. They were previously unranked. Rookie Bijan Robinson rushed for 180 yards in their 1-point win over the Packers last week. In their first 2 games, Falcons have run the ball on 56% of their offensive plays. That's made life easier for Desmond Ridder, their quarterback. So they've got a road trip to Detroit this week, so they could go to 3-0. Number 8, we've got Jacksonville. Jacksonville lost to Kansas City, so they fell to 1-1 and fell from 7 to 8. 0 TDs against Kansas City. They just had 3 field goals. Lowest point total for them, 9 points since a 37-7 Week 13 loss to the Rams in 2021. Number 7, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, and the Baltimore Ravens. They're unbeaten at 2-0. Anybody who thought getting a $260 million contract was going to cause Lamar to mail it in is finding out differently. He's completed nearly 75% of his passes in the first 2 games. And they've got they should go 3-0 this week. They've got the Colts at home. Number 6, we've got Miami. The Dolphins are 2-0 after their win against New England, and then they've got 0-2 Broncos this week. So good news. Patriots defense didn't let Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle run wild like the Chargers did in Week 1, but the Dolphins still managed to improve. I hope Hill and Waddle leave cleat marks all over Sean Payton's face this week when they play the 0-2 Broncos. And we're down to 5. Number 5, we've got the Buffalo Bills, 1-1 now, bounced back from a loss to the Jets with a 28-point win over the Raiders last week. And now they've got the 2-0 Washington Commanders. I don't have a lot of faith in the Commanders' 2-0 record. They're an improved team, but I don't think they can stay with the Bills. Sam Howell's about to get a big lesson from the Bills defense. Number 4, we've got Kansas City. Chiefs are 1-1 with the Bears up ahead next, so they're looking at improving to 2-1. Steve Spagnuolo's defense held Doug Peterson's Jags to those 3 field goals I mentioned earlier. Mahomes has performed better in those State Farm commercials than he did against the Lions and the Jags, but it's just a matter of time before he starts clicking. And with the way the defense is playing, this team is going to probably make that jump up here very soon. Number 3, we've got the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are 2-0. 40 and 20-point wins over the Giants and Jets. They've made New York feel very, very sad. And they've got the 0-2 Cardinals this week. So 3-0 is, the Fox should not even be allowed to televise this week's game. What Micah Parsons is going to do to Joshua Dobbs and the many people who will attempt to block him is going to be flat out R-rated violence. So, the Cowboys look like the real thing. There have been years when everybody thought they were a Super Bowl team. This year, they've assuming they stay healthy, this is going to be a battle to the end with them and the Eagles. Number 2 means somebody else is number 1. I'm going to keep the 49ers at number 2. They were number 2 last week. They're 2-0. Got the Giants this week. They beat the Rams only by 7 this past week. Rams are playing better than everybody thought they would. But the 49ers defense already has 4 interceptions and has held their first 2 opponents to 5.3 yards per attempt. Christian McCaffrey is just playing out of this world. He's averaging 6.4 yards per carry. Yeah, you heard me, 6.4. And last but not least, at number 1 for the third consecutive week, we've got the Eagles. They're not playing particularly well. They've got problems on both sides of the ball, but, they're winning, and that's the key. They struggled to beat New England and Minnesota and won. The 7 touchdown passes they've given up to Mac Jones and Cousins are concerning. Their red zone play on defense is concerning. A lot of things about their offensive play is concerning. The good part is they've got 11 days to correct all that and figure things out. So it'll be interesting. That this long break is huge. You can do a lot of self-scouting in 11 days, and I'm sure they are. The players got some time off. I would guess the coaches didn't get a lot of it. I expect to see Brian Johnson make some adjustments when they play the Bucs this week. Same thing with Sean Desai and his defense. You know, the defense has, as I mentioned with Mike when we were talking, the defense has a lot of excuses for their struggles because they've had a lot of injuries. And they can always count as long as they don't people up front get hurt. They're going to be able to count on that pass rush throughout the year as long as they can delay people coming off the line of scrimmage, because that's the whole key. I remember a few years back they had a good pass rush, but people like Russell Wilson, they faced a murderer's row of quarterbacks at one point, and they were getting the ball out in less than 2.5 seconds, 2.3 seconds, and the rush would get there just a tad late. And that's what's happening this year so far. They've only got 4 sacks from that front four. They're not blitzing a lot. Sean Desai in the first 2 games has blitzed only 19.6% of the time, which is pretty much what John Gannon did last year and the year before, and what Jim Schwartz did before him. Both of them were below 20. I mean, this is the 3rd straight coordinator who's basically relied on his front four. And why not when you've got a front four like this? Like I told Mike, I mean, I think Jordan Davis and, I shouldn't say this because they're so young, but Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter could become this era's Reggie White and Jerome Brown. I mean, they're that good in my opinion. So anyway, so that's our show for this week. I'd like to thank my guest, Mike Quick, for his always invaluable insight. He's a terrific longtime friend and a great guy and a terrific broadcaster. And Merrill, if you're listening, I was only joking about him being responsible for making you an icon. Only you are responsible for making you an icon. You're one of the greatest broadcasters in history. And Mike, for the last 27 years, has done a great job working alongside you and providing analysis. Also, special thanks to my producer, Ralph Dell, for guiding me through another episode of Birds Report. And feel free to follow me on Twitter. My handle is @PDomo. Also, feel free to email me if you want at pdomo@aol.com. I'm one of the last living people with an AOL email account. You can read me on 2 terrific websites, the 33rdteam.com and also jacobsports.com. You can also listen to me on Monday nights on WBCBsports.com, where I co-host Monday Night Kickoff with my good friend Paul Domowitch. And of course, be sure to catch me here every Wednesday on the Birds Report podcast on A2D Radio. If you're my wife, you can catch me on Tuesdays and Fridays between 2 and 6. Until we meet again, aloha.